Okay. Hi, I'm Lainey Morris, and my speech is called Incarceration Nation. The United States has the largest number of incarcerated citizens in the world. Our country, only making up 5% of the world's population, holds an astounding 25% of the global prison population, according to a 2013 report by the Vera Institute of Justice Statistics. The past 3 decades, prison population has increased 2.3 million, concludes data collected by the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And I have this graph here that shows, I'll send you the PowerPoint, but it shows the U.S. Prison population compared to the rest of the world. And it's, yeah, by the Vera Institute of Justice Statistics. Kind of hard to see on here, though. Okay, so a surprising factor behind our large prison population is that government is outsourcing prisons and prisoners to the private sector. Large companies and stockholders making money off bodies in a cell is not only immoral, but it creates a plethora of problems for prisoners, guards, and you as a tax-paying citizen. To inform you about the privatization of prisons and make it relevant to you as an audience, I will give insight on the corruption and negative effects of these corporations that they have on mass incarceration, and bring light with examples of the condition of these prisons and how the corporations affect us. How we ended up in this dilemma is a result of a long chain of events starting in the 1980s, when the war on drugs influenced Get Tough on Crime initiatives. Housing a vast amount of inmates is quite costly. Food, medical expenses, rehabilitation programs, employees' benefits, all that cost consumes about $55 billion annually, which it concludes data from the Vera Institute of Justice Statistics in 2013. So the two big names in private prison corporations are Correction Corporation of America, aka CCA, or Wackenhut, and the formerly Wackenhut Corrections Corporation, or GEO. These corporations, founded in 1983 and 1984, started initiating contracts for states to transfer federal and state institutions to private facilities. As you can see from this graph, and it's kind of hard to see, down here in like the 80s, this is when CCA and GEO, had built their first prisons, the prison population started climbing more and more. Again, I'll send you the PowerPoint that I have. As you can see, so states can pay private corporations up to $18 a day less, according to 2013 data by the Reason Foundation. They were also appealing because private corporations built their own facilities, saving states time and millions of dollars to accommodate the growing prison population. The incentive of corporations such as CCA and GEO is profit, combined in enticing $3.3 billion a year, according to 2012 Bureau of Justice Statistics. Prisons in the private sector now make up about 15% of prisons, a number that has doubled in the past 10 years. So, how do private prison corporations make a profit, and how is it negative? A direct quote off CCA's 2014 annual report states that leniency on current laws and sentencing will affect their revenue. This is the quote. The demand for our facilities and services could be adversely affected by the relaxation of enforcement efforts, leniency and conviction or parole standards and sentencing practices, or through the decriminalization of certain activities that are certainly prescribed by our criminal laws. Therefore, corporations want to keep as many people in their institutions as possible by keeping tough on crime legislation in place. The corruption comes into play when private prison companies have an illegal hand in writing the laws that keep their cells filled. For example, the private prison industry has participated in ALEC, a lobbying organization. At least one executive from CCA and GEO actually sat on ALEC committee that drafted Get Tough on Crime legislation. According to ACLU's National Prison Project Representative Carl Takei, 50% of inmates are in prison for nonviolent drug crimes, and 36% for illegal immigration, according to 2014 infographics released by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Reformation of harsh laws against nonviolent offenders could make a huge impact on lowering our prison populations and money spent on prisons. But TACA from ACLU also gathered data that CCA spent about $18 million from 1999 to 2009 in lobbying and even more in donations to electoral campaigns. Though lobbying is not illegal, it can lead to scandals and bribery. An instance of this occurred in 2008 when two Pennsylvania judges, President Judge Cavalli and Senior Judge Conahan, were convicted of accepting $1.8 million from Robert Miracle, a builder of two private juvenile detention facilities. In return for contracting the facilities, judges agreed to impose harsh jurisdiction on juveniles brought before their courts to increase the number of residents in the centers. Judges sentenced children to extended stays in youth centers for offenses as minimal as mocking a principal on social media, trespassing in a vacant building, or shoplifting DVDs from Walmart. According to reporter Ada Peralta for NPR, ironically, the judges were sentenced to 28 years in prison. Further, when beds are not to capacity, private institutions lose revenue and stock value decreases. Some corporations have even successfully gotten states to sign contracts with an occupancy requirement of 80 to 100%, requiring reimbursement if quota is not met, which can actually make private prisons more expensive. According to a published 2013 journal report titled Lockup Quotas, Guarantee Profits for Private Prison Corporations. While the private prison sector is thriving on our tax dollars, it is taking away from things like roads, buildings, college campuses, healthcare, etc. Quality of life for prisoners in private institutions is cause for concern. Because these corporations are profit-oriented and receive less money per prisoner, they try to spend as little money as possible. Crowley Correctional Facility in Colorado is operated by CCA, and in 2004, a huge riot took place as a direct result of the inadequacy of the privatized institution. Prisoners were very unhappy with the conditions of the prison, the food, lack of health care, and support, not to mention they were extremely understaffed. The riot resulted in fire, escapes, injuries, death, and millions in damages. The most costly part of running a prison is staffing. Private institutions slash employee pay. As a result, turnover rate is high, and guards are often undertrained and lack experience needed to properly respond to situations. In a study by the Vera Institute in 2013, it is shown that there were 49% more staff assaults and 65% more prisoner assaults in private facilities. The largest cause next to staffing is healthcare. There have been many reports and lawsuits filed by prisoners not receiving the appropriate mental and physical care. In Florida, officials found that two private prisons spent only about half as much on health care per inmate as comparable to state prisons, a difference of $9 million over 2 years, according to an ACLU report. Prisoners are being punished but also rehabilitated. Private prisons have less incentive to include programs like job training, counseling, support groups, which support prisoners to stay out of the system. Prisoners are in complete reliance of the prison for their care. It's unfair that corporations are profiting at the expense of prisoners' safety, health, and well-being. It is a clear issue that America has such an astounding number of incarcerated citizens for the past decade. Attempts at reform such as Jerry Brown's Prop 37, which decriminalized non-violent drug crimes, will hopefully begin to make a significant dent. But private prisons are pushing hard to keep laws in place that will keep their pockets lined with taxpayer dollars. Private prisons are profiting off of human misery and making sure that America stays known as Incarceration Nation. Thank you.